So having covered the simpler one, the unions, now let's tackle joins. As such, joins are not very difficult. So if you remember the employee master, so we have a department code, and then the another table, a small table which tells what is the expansion of that code. Right? This is what we really call a join. Right? So let me show it to you. Yeah, so we have a department code here, and then we want to replace it here, right? So in the simplest case, this should work like a cakewalk. There's no problem. But there are a number of problems that can come and why they come. So first, I want to give you a bit of overview, and then we'll get into problems. Yeah. So here is, so as I said, so it is join or lookup. Most of us, we know from Excel usage, this is lookup. How do we do this? So we have at least one common column so that we can find matching rows. So what are the possibilities? So I take, just visualize this. So I'm taking a department code and trying to go here and locate that department code, right? So what possibilities exist? One, I find an exact match, right? One fin is found. The second is there's no match found, and third is more than one match found, right? So those are theoretically the three possibilities, right? And then I also have one more which we'll come to. So one match found, that is the ideal case. Happy land, let's give it a big hand and keep moving, right? So what if no match found, right? So this is often a case. So when do we typically do a join? We do join when we have this kind of short codes, but in a real scenario, when we have transactions, something like your sales, purchases, any type of a transaction or event that you are trying to capture, always has what we call masters, right? So things like the things that answer the question of who is involved, which is talking about people, which can be employees, suppliers, customers. So the who part, the persons. The second is where is it done, which is locations, right? And then in terms of sometimes the systems have some sort of a contracts or how, and then what are we really selling, product and product related. So the answer to this, basically what we call the 5W or whatever, so who, what, when, where, most of them results in what we call a master table. These are smaller number of entities: product master, item master, the customer master, contract master, project master. So all of these masters, so they have these IDs, employee master, and then in the real transaction, so we are just recording this ID and then whatever that event is, sales, purchase. So we want to start from transaction, go fetch all the employees detail, all the customer detail, so that the way we can hook them up. That's the case for a typical real world scenario, right? So what do we say when we say no match is found, right? So we have a transaction and say there is a customer ID, and then there is no match found on the customer master. Can this ever happen? If both are built by systems, I mean, this possibility is rare, right? Unless somebody went and deleted something, which is a very rare possibility. But in the world where we are basically constantly migrating between systems, and then sometimes masters are maintained by hand, especially things like product master in smaller companies, they are maintained by hand. So in these cases, yes, this problem can come. So what happens then? So typically when you do a join, but all the products give you what is called the inner join. What it means is, so let me start off with this, the same thing. So I took fin and then I'm trying to locate fin, and fin is not found. Inner join means, oh, fin is not found, then I don't even want this employee, right? So that is what inner join means. Drop the rows from the left hand side. So left hand side is where we are starting the search. Right hand side is the target where we are searching the table. So I did not find something, so I'm going to drop this on the left hand side. There are very minor cases where this is useful, but for practically all, I mean, real world purposes, this results in wrong things, because we are moving from transactions to master. And if we don't find a master entry, that means, we do not want to drop the transactions, right? So the inner join is wrong for most cases. Then why do tools choose inner join? One, I think it comes from the SQL background, where the equal to was interpreted as the inner join. This was the first original point. and then more complicated terms like left, outer join, and many things have to be supported. So equal to nicely meant inner join. Second, also I think more from an implementation perspective, outer joins are much more difficult to do. Having coming from a development perspective, I can understand that. So from a performance perspective and implementation perspective, inner join is much faster to execute, I guess. So these are the reasons why it does. So for me, you should always check to make sure that you should do a left outer join so that you are not dropping anything from your left hand side. The second thing is, so that is that. So when we do that, what happens to the right side? We just keep those rows empty, right? Only the column names are there, nothing is there, which is fine. And the third possibility is, so one, we said we drop or we keep the right hand side empty. The third possibility is error, when you don't find a match. Is there any tool which does that? In the BI world, probably there is no tool which does that, but our favorite and first BI tool, Excel, does this. So our first join expression is called VLOOKUP. And many analysts hate this NA kind of error. So that is basically this error. So it did not find a match. So Excel is shouting out in front of all your audience, NA, NA, NA. NA used to drive us crazy in the investment banking world when we were building models. But anyway, that's one of the things that Tableau or none of the tools do. But what they do is worse. NA at least brings out the problem to the surface. We have to deal with this. Inner join drops the record. So be aware of that. And then the second case, which can be even worse, this happens is when we find multiple matches, right? Can this happen? I mean, or is it a theoretical possibility? I've seen it happen a number of times. Many a times because people don't understand this concept of what we call granularity, or the term that I've been using in the videos, level of detail. People don't understand what should go on the left hand side, what should go on the right hand side. Is there a same level of detail so that we can put things together, especially technical people who are involved in a lot of these ETL work, the data preparation work so far in the world. So I mean, a lot of this work was delegated to technical people who are building tools like Informatica, Data Stage, and then moving data from different systems into this. They do not fully understand the concept of granularity in the source systems. For them, let's just put things based on specifications and stuff. This often happens, and I've seen this happen in more than one client engagement. And when it happens, the results are nasty meaning you have no clue what's going on. So what does it mean? So first, what possibilities are there to handle multiple matches? One is pick the first match. Which tool does that? Our favorite Excel does that. So in VLOOKUP, if you go and it finds the first match, it will just pick that, right? So at least in this case, it suppresses the problem, right? And the second thing is, so you duplicate the left hand side. So I started, for example, from here, fin. If I found two fin here, for example, if I find two fin here, so what I do is basically, so for each thing, I basically bring both of them, both billing and finance. That means each time there is fin, I will substitute two rows and bring all of the numbers down, salary and everything, duplicate everything. Literally, Steve Hunter and Ju and Dash, they are duplicated, right? But to cope up with that, two times if I have two entries. If I have 10 entries, each record 10 times, right? So basically, in other words, we are multiplying, baby. This is the nastiest error, and it is hard to detect, and that's why I recommend a lot of validation, especially when we are doing data warehouse work or data preparation work, which is often neglected by a lot of people. So we don't validate because things are coming from a different system and many things are there. Validation is actually difficult. But with the modern ETL tools, this should be easier as well, right? But overall, thinking through, understanding what we are trying to join will actually at least save you from this multiple matches thing. And the third thing is error, multiple matches found, error. So which tool does this? Power Pivot, I think, does this. So even now, I think even Power BI also, because it has the Power Pivot as the data model. If it finds basically two entries or multiple things, it will actually stop you from proceeding, right? So it will say stop sign, red, you go fix the problem and come. Is that the ideal thing? Not really. Many a times we would just want to, because of one error in the master, we do not want to basically stop the work. So having some way to handle that would be helpful. So let's see what Mastro does. And then the final case is match is there, but it is not found, right? because of spelling mistakes, sometimes typos, there are empty spaces and all of that. So I have seen one tool which does basically what is called like, I think, distance based join, match based on similarity. Like we were trying to put together different spellings of associate together. In the same way, the tool can do this. It's great, but it has to be reviewed with lot of caution, because it potential danger zone, right? So because it could lead to any of these issues, right? It could lead to multiple matches, it could lead to no match, and then what it is doing, whether it's dropping or not, these things we do not know. It's good if a tool supports it, but then we need to validate it, right? So that's all with respect to the possibilities for the join, right? Theoretically. So the sweet case, which is match found, only one match found, no match found, left outer join, meaning keep the left side, is the right thing to do. Keep the transaction. Multiple matches found, always a disaster. So we need to find out why. Most of the times happens because the person does not understand the granularity involved in joining tables. Sometimes this also can happen. For example, you are bringing two things which are at different levels, and then we need to roll them up, which is the topic of the next session. We need to summarize both of them to come to a common level, and then we can join. There is one potential match, and then this is the other case, right? So now let's see a simple case of the employee master lookup in Mastro itself, and then we'll see a slightly more complex case which covers all of these scenarios. So now this is employee master itself. So let me bring it here in Mastro. So I have in fact the other one. So let's do this. Let's go through this one, which is the file which I actually created specifically for this. So I have a sales file. Simple company, just a few toys it is selling, and then some quantity, right? So nothing much. And then we have a product master which contains about 7 products, I guess, 7 products, right? So we want to basically understand what's our total revenue, what's our profit. These are the 2 questions that we want. And then we also want to know for each product, what is the basically total sales. So these are the 2 reports that we want, right? So that's what we want to do. And then if a product has not been sold at all, so that also we want to know. So these are the things that we want to do. So just to make sure, because we are dealing with a lot of scenarios, and if we directly go to Tableau, Mastro, this might be hard for you to visualize. I wanted to do this very simple thing that we all understand. How does a join work? What does the database really do? So let's start here. So I have these things side by side, so that you could see how things are done. So the first product, car, right? So if here we are taking this toy sold and then matching it to this column called product. So it is going to look for car, and then here the second record, it's going to bring these 80 and 100, and it is going to put here. This is how it's going to work, isn't it? So now let's go to this thing called ball. So in ball, so we have basically no balls found. So you can see here it is wrong spelling, right? I have indicated this as a problem. So it will not find this. So in this case, inner join means we want to drop all these ball sales, which we do not want to do. So how do we fix this? The only way, at least for us, is to we fix the issue, data quality issue first, and then we do a join, then it would work. Or a case like Wrangler, which can actually match it up. But my preference would be to fix this as a data quality issue and then do a join, right? So we'll ignore this. And then what is the other problem case? This is train. Train is occurring 2 times here. One time with 100, 200, 100 as cost, 200 as sales price. And then another time 12 and 20 as the sales price, right? So let's go to a train record. It has 5 quantities. So now it's trying to find 2 things. What should it fill? Should it, for example, do 120 here? And then basically insert another row and then do 12 or 20. I mean, the moment duplicate is found on the target, everything we do is wrong. I mean, all the approaches that I've outlined to you, multiply or keep the first value, everything is wrong. So this is something, actually the ideal thing is we have to stop and fix this. So how do we stop and fix this? So we want to demonstrate this in Mastro, so I will keep it for now. Ideally, we should go review and then see what the issue is, fix and proceed. And then finally, this one, plane, which is not being sold at all. The rest of the things are good cases. Plane is not sold at all. So if we are starting this as the left hand side and trying to find only match, the plane gets basically dropped, right? So we don't want to do that. So this is okay when we want to find total sales and all of this. So from a product perspective. So if we take the left as the base, we will never see the fact that the plane was not sold at all, which is also something we wanted to see. We wanted to see new products not yet sold. So how do we do that? This is the case where we want to keep, even though there is nothing on the left hand side, right hand side. So how do we do this? So these are the cases that we want to call. This is called right side outer join, meaning do not bring all the things that we do not even have on the left side also. Right? So let's see this in Mastro, how this looks. So here I brought the sales data set, the same data set that you have seen, just 12 records. And then the product master data set, which has 7 records, as you can see. Why 7 records? Because train is duplicated twice, right? So the data quality issue is visible very clearly here. So now let's try to do the join. So we want to basically take sales, keep that as the left hand side, and then basically join search as in the product master, which is the right hand side. So basically you drag and drop the right hand side. So that is how it works. It determines left and right. So it is first throwing an error. What is the error? Join node is missing a join condition. Very good. So it is not able to figure out the join condition because we have completely different names for this, right? So now this is good. So look at this first. Let's look at this. What does this color mean? So now it is telling you clean 2. So I don't like these names, clean 2. So let's do a rename. So let's call it sales. Maybe again, does it work? Yes, it does work. So product, right? So now we can see it properly. So in sales we have ball, but we do not have a match on the product. In product we have balls and then plane. So this is nice. So at least it is telling us what the problems are, and then the joint results are indicated. So let's see here. So first let's so now it's saying sales has 8 rows which are included in the joint results, and then 4 rows which are excluded, right? So this is doing an inner join, right? So let's that means basically the ball, this will be dropped from the output, right? So as we can see here, there are only 8 records that are coming through. So let me minimize this, maximize this. So we have only 8 records, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 records that are coming in, right? So that, yeah, 8, and then this is coming in 10. So let's understand how this 10 is arrived at. So 8 rows are there, and then 4 rows are excluded because unmatched rows excluded from the joint result. So these are the 4 items because that belongs to the item called ball, which is not finding a match on the right hand side. So 4 records are excluded. So let's check how many records we started off with. We have 12 records. So we have 8 which is passing through, and 4 that are excluded, right? So I am able to, if I click here, I see this. If I click here, I'm seeing the items which are all the, this is 8 or 12. This is showing us all rows from the joint results, unmatched rows from the joint result, all rows from the, so I expected to see these 8 records only here, but for some reason this interface, I actually find it very unintuitive. I could not, even after trying many times. So now it is showing these 8 records. I do not really know where to click to get 8, where to get 4. Anyway, so this is a bit unintuitive for me. And then let's go to the product one. So now it is saying product has 7 rows, 2 are excluded. So balls and plane are excluded. But then here, what is 5 are included, and then so it is resulting in, how this is resulting in 8 into 10 records. So why is it happening 8? How is it becoming 10? The reason, because we had this multiple match, if you remember. So there is train, right? So let's identify the train records here. There is one train here, and then there is another train here, right? So each time, so there is basically, we started off with 12 records, right? So this is 12 records, and then there are 2 train records, right? So each of the train records get twice, so that becomes basically this 12 will end up becoming 14, and because the ball thing match is not found, that is dropping another 4. That's how 10 is arrived at, right? So this is definitely resulting in something wrong. How do we fix this? So first let's come here. We have two trains. How do we exclude one train, right? So can we exclude this? But it excludes all of them, right? So there is no easy way to really exclude this, in my knowledge, in here, unless we do some sort of a filter by calculation, where I try to do something silly like this, and then that basically, oh, what did I do? So I want to exclude one of the train, or so let's do this. So this, let's do some silly stuff to get rid of this. So now I have only one train. So now if I go to the join clause, so I have 8 and then 4 matches. This is done. So this problem is handled. And then how do we handle this balls thing? So one option is, so I don't know whether this will work. Let's try. So if I click on all of these records, so I go here now, product master, so I can do a edit and clean up here, and then now I think things will match. So the only thing that is missing here is this plane which did not have any sales, right? So how do we do that? So we want to basically have even the right hand side included. So this will now result in 13 records, right? So that is how we are seeing. If we click on this left outer join, now this will basically result in 12 records, right? So in a case like previously when we had ball which was not matching, so if I had this one back here as balls, and then the inner join will actually keep those records also, it will not drop like the previously it was dropping, right? So let's just visualize this as an output. Let's see how this is looking. So now let's add a quick output and then run it as for example. So I'm gonna select a CSV, but you could see the results here itself. All these unmatched items, they have null on the right hand side, and then here we did not select the full outer join. So if we select that, then these records, the plain item and the balls which are unmatched, they are also coming here. So if we have a data set like this, what could be wrong? So if we actually use this to, for example, quantity into cost price and sales price to find both revenue and profit, this would be correct. So including the right hand side does not really influence the results. But then this unmatched records will result in basically all of these sales not being counted. So that could be a problem as well, right? So those are the things that we need to fix. Yeah. So I hope this session actually showed you the potential dangers and issues that could come in terms of join, and then how we can work with these different cases. I think the join interface is something to be worked upon. I mean, I found it very unintuitive. I thought even with a sample data set that I've constructed to make it easy, this is becoming actually very difficult to understand how these bars work and how these things work. And then having an ability to at least select full outer join, and that would be helpful. I think Mastro team can learn from actually two tools which do it very well. So I like Alteryx. This is probably the clearest and the most visual representation of join that I've seen. Very, very clear, very nice. I do not have the license, otherwise I will show it to you. And the second thing is actually Power Query, which is shipping now in all versions of Excel by default, and it uses simple terms. Let me see whether I can show it to you. So here is the Power Query interface. I brought the sales table, which is here, and then I select what is going to be basically joined, and then so it is giving us these join kinds: left outer, right outer. Pause for a moment and read the descriptions. Very, very nice, and it even has certain things that are basically not supported in many tools. Left anti and right anti, which could be actually sometimes helpful. This right anti, for example, so the products which did not have any sales, so this is something that we could actually do, right? So this is definitely doable in the interface that Mastro provides, but this is a lot more convenient and useful for many users. So here, for examples, I could select toys sold and then product. So now this is basically telling us the selection has matched 8 out of 12 rows, right? So this I find to be a lot more intuitive compared to what uh, Tableau is sorry Mastro is trying to do. There are some useful things it is trying to do, but this whole area of join experience is something that I find to be very complicated. Especially trying to validate the numbers. I worked on real cases where it have millions of records, and then we have some of these data quality issues with customer names mismatching migrated between systems, and it was dropping things left, right, and center. And I had no way to really understand what's going on here in Mastro. So I needed to actually take it outside, do multiple steps in Tableau and Excel to really understand what it was doing, right? So definitely something to be improved, but okay, I mean, wherever this is a good starting point, and I hope they improve the join experience.